Hey everyone, we're back again with the last episode of Thrive Together podcast. My name is Megan Darrow. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the host and executive director of Together. And I'm here with special guests and so excited about this episode because we're going to talk about every single thing we felt like we didn't talk about all in an hour. We're going to just jam it in.
Yep.
My co-host today is Megan Sullivan, and I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself and our guests.
I'm Megan Sullivan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the deputy director. It's been such a labor of love to be a part of this season. We're at episode 12, as Megan said, of a 12 episode season of Thrive Together, building community as an act of resistance. And as Megan said, we're just absolutely overjoyed, over the moon, stoked to have these amazing guests here with us. I'm just going to say just a couple words about each of them. Next to me is Dr. Sarah Lloyd, and we have PhD candidate Melvin Fields. And I would love for you guys to share just a teeny bit about who you are and what had you say yes to showing up and sitting on a couch with us today.
Ooh, okay. So I'm Sarah Lloyd, and I currently serve Washington State as the Assistant Commissioner of Equitable and Holistic Service Delivery for Employment Security. Boss ass shit.
That was the first time I've heard the whole title.
Yeah, it's okay. I could say it again. No, I'm just kidding. And I said yes because I'm a huge fan of Together, the mission, the work, and the impact. And also, let's be real, when y'all were like, Melvin will be there, I was like, say less. So Melvin and I have been through a lot of life together in the past few years, which we'll talk about. But he is a very, very dear friend and family member of mine. So it was a no-brainer when it was like, come back. First of all, repeat what? Yes. And then talk with Melvin about how we move through community. So such an honor to be back again. Thank you so much for having me.
And our newest board member. At
That's
Together.
right. What?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Congratulations to us.
All right. Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you, Dr. Fields.
Yes, thank you very much. It's on its way. It's on its
It
way.
is.
It's speaking into existence. I'm Melvin Fields. First of all, I'm a father, a husband, which those are things that are most important to me. I happen to be a school counselor right now in a rural school district. Also, like as Sarah said before, I'm a PhD candidate right now, retired military. So enough about me. I got the chance to see Together's work firsthand as a school counselor and the miracles you all performed in servicing the community and those kids and parents. And so it was a no-brainer to come be a part of this sit down just to have a conversation about how we move forward to help the community. So just thank you so much for inviting me. And then I'm here with Sarah. We're in the PhD program together. She's just completed. She is inspiring a person, took things to a whole different level. When you hear her story, just so impressive. And so just to sit beside her is an absolute privilege.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And I'm going to say a couple words about that story because you didn't share them, Sarah. Sarah and Melvin are in the inaugural class of St. Martin's University PhD program, and it's in leadership studies, correct?
Right.
The program, yeah. And Sarah will be getting she is the first person to successfully defend her dissertation, will be getting the first PhD in the institution's 128-year history.
Absolutely.
And Melvin is on his way there as well. So it's just incredible that you guys are giving back to community in that way by sharing your time with us today and sharing your knowledge and your life experience with the folks who tune in. So we feel the gift of your presence today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, like I said, it's our last episode. I'm going to try and cram a lot of stuff in here. Y'all are amazing. We had a pre-conversation. I'm going to try and bring it all back out. But over the last 11 episodes, you all have heard from Together partners, our amazing team members about a whole host of things that have really been centered in Together's values of equity, community, and systems change. And we've talked about bilingualism, LGBTQ plus students, houselessness, disproportionality for students of color in the school system and in other systems. We've talked about art and music and love and the great partners that do that along with us. And so I want to kind of tee off to bring it all home as we reflect on what we didn't really talk about. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Meg, to ask the first question.
Yeah. So just from what you have heard and from our pre-conversations, one of the things we wanted to ask you guys is like from your educational journeys, from your professional journeys, from your life experience, what do you think organizations like Together, who really are committed to being on a journey of doing social and racial justice work well, should be talking about? What do you think we should be looking at next? What do you think schools, K-12 schools, should be talking about? What do you think our government agencies should be looking at? What's our community's task at hand, and what words of advice or sizzling fire do you have for us about those things?
Yes, sizzling fire.
Well, I mean, I think, one of the things we kind of talked about earlier is just humanity. Humanity is the most important part of any organization because the individuals that work with you or you work with, that you're surrounded with are not just product placement.
Yep.
And so everybody should feel like they belong. And so, akin to, as I move towards my dissertation, one of the things I talk about is belongingness. Mm-hmm. And what does that take to have someone belong?
Yep.
And so you can maximize one's potential when they belong. You can maximize what someone wants to contribute if they belong. Mm-hmm. So there's so many benefits to seeing one's humanity, which subsequently causes them to feel a sense of belonging in an organization. And that can be applied in any situation. In all, from governmental agencies, from K through 12, everybody should feel, and that's not some pie in the sky thing. Like you have to have skin in the game to build relationships with those individuals. And subsequently, when you build a relationship, there's some skin in the game, as in, I truly care about you, and your being here and being part of this is important to myself. And it's not some abstract idea. It's really centered on caring for one another. So I think that's one of the things, and just in a nutshell of how we can move forward collectively to get the best out of everyone.
And I love that because, first of all, humanity, the recognition that happens when you stand across from someone and are willing to recognize their humanity and honor it.
Yeah.
There is a distinct difference in how you even just show up in a moment like that, whether you're strangers, very close friends, whatever. I think also, though, it is hard for me to come from a place of selfishness if I'm honoring your humanity. It's hard for me to be like, I hear you, I honor your humanity also. This decision will harm you, right? Like, I can't exist in love and harm at the same time. I can't. And so if I'm existing in love, in radical love, which is really just like recognizing people and respecting the fact that they also matter and actually matter more than I do, then what happens is there's real reciprocity built in that space, right? So I'm standing across from Melvin and saying, look, like, we don't have to agree on everything for your humanity to really matter to me. And you matter to me more than I do. And I know you will meet me there, right? Then what can't you do in those conditions? Because he knows I'm going to go hard in the paint for him. I know he's going to go hard in the paint for me, and we can survive whatever we face. And so that is contagious. That grows. I think where we miss the mark, or when I think about my educational journey, my professional journey, like navigating the world as a Black female in America today, raising 3 Black women, it's those moments where my humanity is still, like, people are still on the fence about whether or not I have access to humanity. Whether or not, when we're talking about human rights, does that include Sarah and her girls? And because that's still a question for some of us, I think we have issues that wouldn't exist if we would just go back to honoring humanity. because ultimately it's one person's pain is enough for us to change direction and to fix the harm that's happening, right? But when we're not in that space, then we can talk about statistics and like, is it significant? And like, look at the bell curve instead of being like, I believe Melvin when he says this decision harms him and that's not okay for me, right? So there's it's like the difference between leading for power and leading for responsibility. I'm responsible for the people I lead. I have positional power, but I don't give a fuck about that. What I care about is the responsibility that it gives me to do right by them and do right by their humanity, not just the conditions under which we sometimes sit next to each other.
And leadership is servanthood. It's not a position of, as Sarah talked about, is, having a position of power is just in one's own mind. And I think, servant leadership is a way to, as Sarah said, I'm going to caveat again, is just putting others above yourself. Yeah. And so that is kind of, and it's not, and even though it is a theory, it can be achieved just by placing others above yourself. But in the space where I am a Black male, I go into situations without any doubt that I deserve to be in any place I decide to go. And so that's a continuous journey, but some people may not accept that. But in the end, we as leaders and as servant leaders, we have to get past kind of being concerned about what others think. And I think you talked about like being in certain spaces where they might not be as far along. We can go through this journey together, and there's going to be some difficult times, but we can't give up. Yeah. And we have to be, and anything worth having, and it may seem cliche, is worth the pain to get there. As we talked about our journey in our PhD studies, it was painful at times. And it wasn't so much the work that was required. It was just being in the space. Yeah. Right. And so again, how do you navigate those things? And so you have to persevere, but you have to admit when you have people around you, I feel a little bit vulnerable right now. I need your help. Yep. And you have to know that the person that you're talking to is not just there to extract.
When I hear you say that, I think about the title of the podcast, Building Community as an Act of Resistance, and how you two building community with each other was an act of resistance and solidarity. And you were like, I'm here for my learning journey, and I'm here for your learning journey. And we're here to get PhDs. Right.
And that made us stronger. We were stronger even in the pain. Like Sarah was much further ahead in her journey as far as the writing and the skill set, but it was my duty to reach out to her, even if she didn't call me back, is to continue to try to reach out to her to make sure that she knew that she knew one person that wanted her to move forward. And so that's how we have to be, I think, in long term with being far as active resistance is just continue to persevere, and it's not going to be easy. And being upfront about that conversation about it not being easy, because that's kind of left out a lot of times. Is like, this is going to be hard, and describe that to people and be okay with that,
Especially in a system that praises us for being tough in really hard conditions, right? Like, I get told all the time I'm resilient as though it's a compliment, or like grit, which yikes. But and so I think acknowledging, like, I don't want to be praised for resilience. I don't know many people who are adjacent to the struggle who are like, thank you that I will keep going, because resilience is a natural side effect of existing inside of trauma. So that's like me saying, I know this condition for you is really hurting you. Also, could you stay here because your strength inspires me? It's like, no, why don't you stop creating harmful conditions, right? Because there's wisdom, there's intelligence, there's scrappiness, there's agility, there's all these other things you can praise me for, but instead what I regularly get praised for is the ability to survive in a system that's trying to kill me. And so that's not a compliment, right? It's like complimenting people who are stuck in abusive relationships and can't find their way out. That's not a compliment, right? Instead, it's like, what can I do I'm seeing that this is harming you. What can I do to interrupt that, right? Just like grit is like the 2020 version of pull it yourself up by your bootstraps, right? It's like, this condition is really unfair for you. I need you to work really hard to try to get where I'm at naturally. That's not. So I think we have to be in a space where, again, it comes back to like, if we honor the humanity in other people, then it would make me physically ill to ever say to you, I'm so proud of how resilient you are. Like, I would rather vomit, right? Because I understand how resilience comes about. And I'm not okay with you existing in those conditions. And that's a problem that I have ownership and responsibility to do something about. Because now I know, so I'm culpable, but I'm also responsible, right? And that knowledge, until we start having real accountability for that knowledge, then organizations and structures and systems will continue to exist the way that they do, because they're built on the idea that it will be harder for some than others, right? It's not called like white equality. It's called white supremacy, because it's like, yeah, we're always going to win this shit. So until we upset that, we will continue to praise people for being harmed, but in ways that we really like.
Right. And the main thing with leadership too is you address those things even if there's resistance, you know, and so it's the staying power. Because the idea is to make it so uncomfortable for you that you do leave. But the staying power is knowing there's something better on the other side. And that's the story of African American journey. The African American journey is there's something on the other side. So you might see me, but there's people behind me that you can't even see that are supporting me. We talk about it all the time, Sarah. It's like the ancestors are behind me, right? And so I'm empowered even before I get in the room,
Right.
and so just knowing those systems, and again, what I hear in some of the language that a lot of times we hear is, you know, these people are woke, but woke means not white. That's what that means. Like, I'm woke because I'm gonna have an awareness of something that happened, and I'm curious about it, and I want to explore what happened, so I can still achieve and do things, but I'm curious to find out how this system came about. So we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, and I can still love you, but I can still research and find out the origins of this thing.
Yeah.
Because the very foundations of these systems have been detrimental to the health and well-being of generations of people who look like me. So again, we got to understand the language that people use is just used as a failed attempt at repellent to the truth. And so it will continue to fail. It's always failed. It just comes in different amalgamations. And so again, what we didn't mention is not only is the PhD studies in leadership, but it's also social justice.
Yeah.
So that's the canon in which that leadership, our study, our theories that we talked about comes from that perspective. And so that's what the draw was. It was, I want to be a doctor. However, how am I going to be a doctor? So it was very purposeful. In my pursuit, and just by knowing Sarah, you know, it was instrumental in getting her to sign a dotted line to pursue that degree.
Y'all dropped some wisdom earlier on beautiful, right? So
So much wisdom.
right, but I want to call this out for everybody who's listening, who's like, I'm doing this work, so I'm gonna change it all, right? And I'm gonna get to the leadership position so that I can change. You know, I'm gonna be the one, right? And I said a little bit about a book I read, right, in my master's program, Megan was there too. We read a book called Ethics of Dissent. And since I was in high school, I wanted to change the education system. I was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to mess it up. Right. I was like, this is not working for me, for my friends. I want to mess it up. And, you know, getting that master's degree, like, how do you do it? Right. And Sarah will talk a little bit about her great example. And, you know, today in a meeting with our team, we were making up slogans for nonprofit work. And my slogan was, who's in charge here anyway? Because once, you know, you get there, it's like, wait a second. There is no levers here, right? And so talk a little bit about what that work is, you know, what that work is, like that change, right? I think, Melvin, you even said you think it's a mountain, right? And you're going to climb the mountain. There is no mountain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because ultimately we're navigating a system that's a pyramid scheme. And so it's like, I'm going to tell you, hey, you can make a lot of fucking money if you sell these widgets. And people are like, I can. And I'm like, look at Melvin. Melvin makes $10 million a year selling these same widgets. So people grind and grind and grind, and they make $150 a month. And it isn't enough to cover their membership fee. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? And then we say to them, you're not working as hard as Melvin is. Look at Melvin. Look at Melvin. Melvin, show your checkbook. Oh, $10 million. The reality is Melvin came in second. I started the company, Melvin came in, and I was like, we can make a bunch of money. And we sold a bunch of people this dream that literally only makes us richer. And they will never get where we are because mathematically it's impossible, right? So we're chasing this down and wondering why it doesn't work. And we've sold the narrative that people in like middle management are also winning, even though they're not winning at all. Literally only me and Melvin are winning. Because we don't even do anything anymore. We just sit and yell at you guys so you grind harder, right? It's like, so one of the dissertation committee members I have, Jeff Duncan Andrade, he is fucking filthy. Shout out to Jeff. He and I were talking about how I wanted to fuck shit up. I literally cold emailed him and was like, be on my dissertation committee. It's fine. So he and I were talking about like how I wanted to really indict the white supremacist system using the tools of white supremacy, right? And so I was like, they fucked up and taught me how to do this shit, so let's do it. And one of the things he said to me is, one of the most ironic things about your journey is you're examining power on a quest for more power. And I was like, burp. And then he was like, the only way, because so many people come into, you know, social work, so many people come into education, so many people come into PhD programs, and they're like, I'm going to change the world. And then you get into that environment and you become it, because it's not the sharks, it's the water, right? And so as we're swimming and being like, ooh, watch out for the sharks, it's like you're getting acclimated to the fucking water. And so he was like, you know, you're going to walk down the hallway, you're going to realize the teacher's lounge has refreshments. You're going to be like, ooh, let me get some snacks. These chairs are comfortable. And before you know it, you're on a tenure track, right? And he said, so surround yourself with people who keep you honest and do the work righteously, right? And so I think it's like, what does it mean to do the work righteously? It means in every single moment, I am in integrity with myself. Now, I can change my mind. I have changed my mind. I've been like, there's no way that's possible. Read an article. I'm like, well, apparently it's possible, right? That's real, but that's part of humility. But if I, in a moment, am like, I'm going to confront this thing and I lie, I shade the truth, I deny impact, I don't honor humanity, then I can't do it with integrity. And when I'm not doing it with integrity, like real grounded integrity, then inherently I will do harm. And so it's really about like, how do I surround myself with people who love me enough to tell me about myself so that when I'm fucking up, they'll be like, girl, get back on track quickly. And also, how do I know myself well enough to be like, oh, that didn't feel right. I need to fix that now, right? Because ultimately, if you look at systems that are broken, if you look at programs that are falling apart, there was someone somewhere who didn't do the right fucking thing. And instead of being like, ooh, time out, I missed it, it perpetuated. They trained people how to do the wrong thing. And now it's like terrible as fuck and no one knows how to fix it. And so it really is like, being a leader is not glamorous. It's not like a power show. If you're doing it like that, you're doing it wrong. It really is about, I have responsibility to steward the humanity I have access to well, and I have to do that at all moments in integrity. And when I don't do it, I fix it as quickly as possible, right? Unless we're doing that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can have all the frameworks, all the theories. You can rattle off the ascertain this and that, and I'm intelligent. But ultimately, if I'm not moving with integrity, I'm fucking up.
Right.
One thing you said at the end of the episode 5 that you spoke with us that came back up for me here in this conversation and that I think about is like, if we are not uncomfortable, especially if I am not uncomfortable as a white person, I am not doing my work. You said it just about that way. And it's like, I also see how in leadership, what you just said applies. Like, leadership is not glamorous, and you're going to have to make very uncomfortable decisions about being in integrity with yourself. And then in our team meeting this morning, Megan, we were talking about what does it look like to be integrity with a group, a team, and to be in community, like the tagline of our podcast, right? And you had recently shared with me some information that you got from the Center for Equity and Inclusion, which has done some training for our staff and is a really cool resource.
Yep.
And it was about
Shout
different
out
ways to,
CEI.
shout out to CEI. It's about different ways to look at accountability in community so that we can stay true and stay on path and keep ourselves honest and not get, comfortable in what look like seats of power. And certainly, we are in positions where we have a lot of power. Aside from our privilege, we have positional power in our communities and in our organization.
Yeah. Hanif's, it was about being in agreement with the community that you're in, that you hold each other, you speak your truth, you're engaged when you're there, all the time, right? That you don't fix it. You don't fix everything. You just sit in it. And that is what accountability is. And I think, coming up in systems, that's like an unlearning, right? It's an unlearning of what we were taught about what accountability looks like and what you have to be a problem solver. You have to solve all the problems, right? And so, for me, and I think for Together, we're learning like, wait a second, right? We're accountable to each other's humanity, right? To our community, not to fixing every problem, right? Not to, the time or, the number of widgets we make or the number of people we serve, right? We're accountable to each other's humanity. And that is a transformation, and it's awesome. And it's hard work, right? It's hard work.
Yeah, I was going to just add, understanding it's not going to always feel good.
Yeah.
Like we're looking for those feel good moments.
Yeah.
And when I talked about the mountaintop, there is no mountain because again, there's layers to the mountain has a mountain. And so if you're looking to try to get to the top and serve people, sometimes that won't coincide. It won't correlate. I would say instead of climbing, you need to burrow. You need to burrow, and that's where you find things, right? And so when you burrow in the soil, you get to know who's there, where the roots are at, and how things work. Because a great leader understands, how the systems interplay, and where those I think Sarah mentioned those compartmentalizations. And try to make the connectivity between all those things for the greater good. And it takes time. Yeah. And one thing I want to add is we were talking about, fixing different things is sometimes to feel good, we don't go behind the door. We keep that door shut. And we need to have the courage to open that door. And when we talk about the uncomfortable, being uncomfortable, it's important to understand that that's a barrier to going to the next level. Because you say, well, I just don't know what to say, or they might mistake this to be. But again, if you're the humanity of it, it'll get you through all the time. Yep. If you coming from your heart, it speaks volume to be in a safe space. And the trust will be gained because there was an honest mistake between two human beings. And it's not based off the color of your skin. It's based off where your heart is at. And so all those things are important tools as leaders to move to the next level. I think that's very important.
And the system, it's also important to think about, like, the system is designed the way that it is intentionally, right? So you talked about, like, not necessarily knowing which step to go, or learning as a young kid. Now you have to unlearn things you've known as a kid, right? Or the silos that inherently keep our humanity spread out.
Yeah.
All of those things are intentional. People will say all the time, like, the system's broken. I'm like, nah, bruh. It's actually flawless, and it's working very well, because what it's designed to do is keep us isolated, similar to abusive relationships, right? So that then I can't say, hey, Melvin, is this weird to you? And then Melvin can go, yeah, that's not good. So instead, now I'm by myself and I'm like, well, I need help, but I'm nervous. I don't know. I have so much shame about asking for help. So now I'm not going to have a human connection. So then he can't challenge the paradigms I have. So now I'm sitting here saying, like, well, if I were smarter, maybe I'd be making more money. Maybe that's why I can't climb to the top of this mountain, because I'm not smart enough. Maybe I need more degrees. And he can't challenge any of that, because we're inherently trained. It's legally obligated for us to be trained starting at the age of 5, which is not a mistake, right? We form our connections with what's right and wrong until we're the age of 7. And then after that, it's case management, right? That's why I'm really good at being a parent. I am. I'll say it. Because all I'm doing is case managing. I'm not trying to teach my kids right and wrong. I did that ages 0 to 7. So we're in a school setting where literally it's like, kids behave well if they obey, right? Kids behave well if they follow directions. And then we build more on top of that. We tell them about how the world works, how we got here as a nation, how people discovered America, right? And we're stacking all of this stuff on top of a context of, like, what'd you just say? Don't talk unless your hand is up. And then we let people free. Now we've convinced them they need more education. So they do that for 13 years. Then we send them to another 4 at least, right? Requiring them. In order to feed their families, they need to go through more training, which is more obedience training, right? And then we're like, well, be your authentic self. It's like, do any of us know who that is? People say to me all the time, because I'm bold and fearless, like, it must be easy for you. It's not easy for me. I was raised in the same system. Furthermore, depending on your credentials, I'm better trained in it than you, right? The choice is intentional every day to say, that's not right.
Yeah.
Right? And so until we do that, of course, none of us know how to do it. That's why we're still stuck here. But what it takes is a whole bunch of solutions that will make no fucking sense to any of us, because we are trained to perpetuate the system forever.
Yeah.
We're trained to keep it going. It's like Dr. Stropel told us, right? There were 2 main assumptions when people established the system. 1, that it would work, and 2, that they would never be overthrown. And I'm like, damn, because it's true. It's true. We're not supposed to be able to break it apart, because we were trained from 5 years old to keep it going forever.
And that it's good, and that it's working, and that if you don't think it's working, or if you don't think it's good, you should be quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
You're the problem.
There's
Or there's
something wrong
probably
with you.
something wrong with you, or you probably need some medication, right? Like, there's all of these stigmas around our resistance to being separate from each other's humanity. Because the reality is, like, my journey with Melvin in the PhD program, like, we became not only great friends, but he's my brother, right? And the reality is, my experience from the beginning towards the end, there are conversations we had in small moments for 5 minutes in between class that transformed my life, and I think about every day, once we had access to, like, really witnessing each other's humanity. In the beginning, it was like, I don't know what he's talking about. And he's like, she's a lot. But towards the end, it was like, this shit is a whole journey, and we see it clear. Did you see that? Yep, I saw that, right? And so you're walking in lockstep with people who are like-minded and can keep you honest, right? And that's what it's about. The system is designed to keep our humanity separate, because once we unify, we're far more powerful.
Right.
Yeah. We just had this conversation with the Together team. Like, even the imagery of holding hands, like that,
Walking in lockstep.
walking in lockstep together.
Yep.
As a team, like, that is the vibes that Together is striving for as a team. And I mean, I was challenged by it in that room because I'm a white cisgendered, person in the world. And I was like challenged that, what we need. And I'm not challenged anymore. I mean, I like sat with my feelings is community, right? We need community. That is the work. And we will be better for it when we can look at each other and say, dude, you just messed up. Like, we're messing up. We need to fix it. And we can't do that unless we're in humanity, in relationship, in community with each other, and all feel like we got each other, right? And that's what y'all just said, right? That's where transformation happens.
Right. The layers, the stripping of the layers. Because again, we had layers because it was a part of our survival. And so again, we had our own layers that we were unable to strip off until we felt safe.
Yep.
And so it's the humanity that drives a level that elevates team, that elevates servanthood, that elevates community. That's where it really lies in being your authentic self. And so when people always throw out authentic self, it's like, are you really being your authentic self? Like, are you really laying everything to bear? And I've been on teams that life or death situations, and so that requires you to have a level of trust.
Yeah.
And knowing this person is not going to turn around when we go this way.
Yeah.
All of us got to go this way.
Yeah.
But that starts in the team building.
Yeah.
And so you can't know that going through the trial until you start repeatedly different training opportunities or situations in which you disclose or pull back the layers to make sure who exactly you're literally going to war with. Because this is a war.
Yeah.
This is a war that's been going on for hundreds of years. And it's not it is a physical thing, but it's a war of the mind. And so the war of the mind is more lethal than anything. And so again, as in any situation where you're being K through 12 education, higher ed, we have to challenge those theories with the truth of reality.
Yeah. It's real.
I know what's true to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we have to have those opportunities to speak our truths.
Right.
It's important.
Yeah. It makes me think of youth, right? And we started this conversation today without the microphones and cameras when you said, you have the gift of sitting with youth, right? And being in humanity and hearing their relationship woes or whatever it is, right? That is their reality. And it just makes me think when youth go through, their war, right? And some of them are in real trauma, right? They need to look around and see that somebody's going to turn with them when they turn, right? And that's about community and that's about relationship. It's not about counting how many kids you served or how many bananas you gave to the youth or, how many coats or whatever. That's about relationship and love.
Yes.
And trust.
Right. Just real quick, for just when you speak of, children, they, when you talk about studies and research, a lot of times we go towards deficit.
Yeah.
And deficit is not where love lives.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand that when we're sitting down with youth, understanding there's things that we may not understand, but we have to just be quiet and just be. And elevate them.
Yeah.
That is part of being a servanthood.
Yep.
Like, if you want to make a difference in a child's life, listen. And so I've learned that through parenthood.
Yeah.
That was a tough lesson, but again, the benefit of having grown kids of my own is, there's moments where I get do-overs.
Yeah.
And I can explain some things in which I didn't make such good decisions.
So good.
You know, and so again, the benefit of me being a school counselor is I tell my kids I get a chance to do over
Yeah.
all the time with a new person every year.
Yeah.
And the things I may have not learned with you, you help me to learn my lesson to make things right.
Yeah.
And so it's a constant a journey, you know. Not perfection is not the goal, but it is something that can't be bought.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, first of all, perfection does not contribute to connection at all. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants to connect with someone who's like perfect in all the ways because you're like, cool, I fuck up all the time. Like,
Yeah.
so there's no connection point. Also, I think it's real that, like, as our children are navigating the world in the wake of like the boat we have been brought onto, it's real that they should not be struggling like I struggled, right? And I have these moments with my kids all the time where I'm like, you don't even know what it was like, you know? And I told them the other day, you would have never survived my mom's house, right? And also, they shouldn't. That means
Yeah.
I'm perpetuating
Yes.
more abundance, right? They don't know what a ketchup sandwich tastes like. And they shouldn't, because that means I'm keeping us stuck where we were. And so the same in organizations, there's moments where it's like, right, but like 20 years ago, I got in trouble for the thing you're doing right now. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about what happened 20 years ago, right? Let's talk about what was illegal 20 years ago. Let's talk about the context of 20 years ago. And do you want to stay the same as 20 years ago, or do you want to progress? Because part of progress looks like saying, the things I believe to be true may not be true. So let me examine, like Melvin said, be curious about why is it that this is so important, right? A great example is I write all the time with lowercase letters. Some people have big fucking feelings about it. Like big feelings. Some people will tell me judgmental shit about myself because I don't use big letters. Some people tell me they don't understand what I'm saying because I use little letters instead of big ones, which is obviously a personal problem. Here's the thing though. The reason I do it is because I want to practice all the time questioning what I'm allegiant to. Because most people, if you ask them, why do you capitalize and what does it mean? They don't know why. They don't know why. They don't know that it was this random white dude in Europe who was a king and about to lose his kingdom. And people were like, bitch, you ain't done shit. And he's like, well, I should do something significant. And they're like, correct. And so he was like, this is what I'll do. Because at the time, everyone used all caps. And he was like, I'm going to make the first letter of my name and the first letter of our kingdom bigger so people know we're more important. That's literally what happened. And then people were like, wait, Logan's kingdom? Well, what about my kingdom? And so then they started capitalizing. And then we're like, yeah, you're being disrespectful, Peter. Actually, you're being disrespectful if you don't capitalize. And now, all these years later, people are like, Sarah, I feel disrespected when you don't use big letters. And I'm like, do you know why you use big letters, though? Because if not, examine it. And if you want to co-sign on Homeboy, get it. That might be your uncle. I don't know. What I'm saying is I'm questioning all the time what I know to be true. As a parent, as a community member, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, I'm like, is that true today? Because ultimately, great leaders can change their mind, right? Just like you're talking about. You're talking to your kids and being like, I didn't do that well. And I'm showing up differently today because of it. So thank you. Like, that's the kind of leadership that people will follow into the fire. It's not the ones who are like, actually, based on this theory. No one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck about theory. They really don't. Especially if you can't apply it.
Right.
If you don't know how it applies and impacts people, people don't give a shit. So it really is about like, am I questioning all the time the impact I'm having? Can I even see the impact I'm having? And am I doing that with integrity? Because if not, then we're perpetuating racism and homophobia and patriarchy, all of the different things that are meant to suppress people, right? And we don't notice it because we'll suppress people in the places where we have privilege, right? So I'll talk all day about my heterosexuality and the people I'm dating and whatever, and suppress people's ability to like feel free to say, I am actually questioning my sexuality right now because I'm taking up so much oxygen with my heterosexuality, right? And then when I'm questioned about it, I can be like, well, first of all, as a Black woman, right? As a Black woman, I would never do something problematic, right? And it just keeps going. So it's really about like, are we actually questioning and seeing how we're showing up? And do we believe people in their humanity when they say to us, hey, I know you're trying really hard and you harmed me still, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough. That should be enough.
Yeah, that should be enough.
Right.
It has to be enough.
Right. And I would just add when Sarah and we talked about the lowercase letters, but it does go back to a person's not concerned with the content.
Yep.
They're just looking the way it looks.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right. So it could be a beautiful story inside, but because it's lowercase, I'm going to throw it away.
Yep.
And it could have been the best story ever written. And so that's a lesson in life and how we judge
Yeah.
because it doesn't
good.
fit into a certain standard. And as I talk about, my journey, I'm from Oklahoma, which is, Oklahoma City was, Trail of Tears,
Yeah.
5 civilized tribes, but civilized to who?
Yep.
My grandmother's like 101 years old right now. And so again, I'm walking in a room with stories of things that happened in the past. I can't unlearn that. And it does contribute to my journey. And when I speak of Oklahoma, I speak of when I was in elementary school, we talk about from to 7 years old, 8 years old, in elementary school, they had us do a land run. And they just had all the kids just line up and we just run like bat out of hell. And pretty much legitimizing, a large scale murder.
Right.
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 And so there was no explanation, but kids were running around. But this was curriculum that was, contrived to as a part of brainwashing. So again, because I know that now, but there's different things throughout this country, this nation, in which we've not done a good job.
Yep.
So if I'm willing to assess what I've done in the past and say, I think I can correct this.
Yeah.
I think I can do something about this. I can do this better. That's the journey of being American. That's what makes us great as individuals, because we can make correction to make things right.
Yeah.
A servant is, like I said before, putting others above yourself. That's just being human. So I just said all that to say that's just a small portion of what makes me who I am.
Yep.
But there's so much more. But we got to see that in everybody. Like what is about this individual that I can help them reach their full potential.
Yeah.
And so with a kid, it's so much reason why I became a school counselor is because in the past, it's like, what if this young person, this 18-year-old, 19-year-old that I'm working with, what if they would have had somebody talk to them, at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? They're so gifted, but their position in life is based off some of the decisions they made in the past.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful, based off, some of the work that you guys have done and are doing, that we can collaborate to give people hope and opportunity to say, let me help you get through this, because there is brighter days and there's people who care about you. So
Yeah. And I think the smarter, and not school academic smart, but like the more wise and the more inclusive we are about and diligent about what it means to be in community to begin with. We talked about that in episode 5 about like the difference of community definition, right? And the devotion that comes inherently in communities that have had less. Like for COVID, for instance, there were many communities of color that did not get extra resource, that did not get extra whatever. And how we survived that was grouping together and being like, hey, Logan, have you eaten? Okay, if not, we're eating. Like we'll coordinate and we'll make things happen. I think a lot of times inside of systems, when we talk about community, we're talking about geography and not about real connection with other humans. And because of that, then we're teaching our children that's what community looks like, right? Like I'm diligent about teaching my kids about community looking like being surrounded by people who have you feeling like you're safe, feeling like you are loved, feeling like you're held accountable. And when you leave a space, checking in with your body to being like, what did that feel like for me? And is that an investment that I need to keep making? And I model that with the people I surround myself with, right? I model that in how I show up at work and talk about work. I model that with how I steward my relationship with my father, right? And so all of those things, they're paying attention to all of that, right? Just like they're paying attention in middle school to Melvin always listens to us without judgment. My kid the other day, my 11-year-old, she was talking about her old crush. Apparently she moved past it. She's like, we're over it. And I said, what happened, girl? What happened? And she was like, I saw him being rude to people and I cannot have that in my life. And I was like, girl, yes. And then she's like, I need a man who speaks life into me. And I was like, and I'm driving the car and just crying because what would my life have looked like if at 11 years old, I was like, look, to be proximate to me, you need to speak life into me. I can tell you what it's like at this age, but that was a hard-earned mountain that kept having mountains.
Right.
My 11-year-old is like, you don't get to be around me unless you bring life into my space, right? And so they understand community at a whole different level that, again, if we can get out of the way, they'll save us all, right? Because they understand differently what does it mean to steward relationships and take care of each other, because they have people who have generations behind them who have brought us to this point. I'm walking on some paved roads and I'm blazing some trails, but that means they're walking a little bit easier. And so they understand what connection looks like differently. And we have to continue to be diligent about when we say community, what do we actually mean? Are we talking about 98502? Or are we talking about people who pay into my life positively?
Right.
Because if we're talking about 98502, I have no allegiance, right? If we're talking about folks proximate to the struggle across the world, that's my community. So meet me there, right? And we'll honor humanity together in that space.
Yeah. So much is coming up for me when you're talking about that, because one piece we've talked about and touched on through the episodes has been around youth mental health. And it's just something that our staff are struggling with, the kids and families who are part of our community. A local, just in like the neighborhood I live in, there's been a lot of tragedy around youth mental health. And my community that I parent with has been talking a lot about it. Like, how do we hold space that doesn't harm our kids, right? And because the adults are like, I don't understand, I don't understand what went wrong, right? I don't understand, right? And just in these podcasts, I've heard over and over, and what you just said just zinged me so much, Sarah, that it's like, our kids need to see us making healthy community, right? They need to see adults making healthy community. And to bring around some of the other things you all have been talking about is that doesn't mean that when we're in when we're with and in community with people, we strive to understand, but we don't have to agree all the time, right? And I think that's lost, right? I think we've lost that, and I think kids see that, right? I think that makes youth scared to be their authentic self, right? Because I could be thrown away for who I am, what I say, right? This action, I'm going to lose access to this thing because we're still in that space of throw away, right? We throw away people who make mistakes. And that just all sits with me there of like, how do we model that? And how do we hold space for youth to really have that?
Yeah, I was just saying, just based
community.
off, understanding, like we've all talked about some of the things that have happened as far as COVID, relationships with, kids, with others, students, peers, parents losing jobs, income is reduced, homelessness. I mean, there's a multitude of things that are going on in society. But acknowledging, when you spoke about parents that may feel like they failed, or they don't understand, we need to remove ourselves from, what did I do?
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of times I have conversations with the guilt and crying and understanding, like, I don't know what went wrong. Well, you're spending a lot of time on your own self-analysis when the kid is struggling.
Yeah.
And so that takes a lot. So again, it's worried about how I look, or the imagery, of what my kid just did. But they need you to be in that situation, just a parent, just somebody who loves them. And the sacrifice is, I don't care how other people see me as an adult.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about removing those layers, that is a part of the layering that needs to be rid. You rid yourself up to get to the heart of the matter to provide that support, because you can't support somebody else if you're still saying me, me, me.
Yeah.
So good.
There's no room. There's only one person at a time that can be dealt with. So as a parent, that's a sacrifice in itself.
Yep.
And so in leadership, that's a sacrifice, because people have been tasked to be under your tutelage.
Yeah.
And so it's not some kind of throne. No, it is really like, okay, I'm just here to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
So again, I put that all in context because it is a part of leadership. Being a parent is a leader, and it's hard, but it's got to be done.
Yeah.
I
The
heard
hardest leadership I've ever done, and I
Yeah.
have a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah.
I read this thing the other day that talked about our children aren't ours, they're ours. And so it's actually my offspring and our children. And I thought it was really interesting, because then it talked about how, like, in especially communities of color back in the day, like, it was totally acceptable if my children were behaving poorly for Melvin to be like, excuse me, no, and to a point where sometimes it's like, I've been spanked by people at church. You know what I'm saying? Like today, look, they call CPS on all of us, right? But the ownership. So now we have no engagement in saying, like, oh, I noticed your kid was drowning and I saved them.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, well, I don't want to touch them because I don't want to get in trouble. And so there's no ownership that we have and responsibility that we have for other
Yes.
people's children. I think the other piece is that I think we have reached a point in society where we have access to too much fucking information. And so we have to pathologize in order to just even meet someone with love. And so it's like, oh, okay, you're in distress. Well, what kind of distress? Do you have mental health issues? Okay, is it PTSD? It's like, does it fucking matter? I'm drowning and I need you to save me, right? It's like, if I'm flailing in the fucking water and I can't swim, I don't want to sit here and talk about fucking swim lessons. I would like for you to get me out of the fucking water, right? And so it's like the pathologizing of life, right? Where it's like, I think I have depression because I'm having a hard time. It's like, no, it might just be a fucked up day. And that's not to downplay the fact that you may have depression. And also, either way, you deserve to be met with love and humanity.
Yeah.
So not that I don't care about mental health because it doesn't need to be taken care of. Therapy is for everybody. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not a fucking therapist.
Yeah.
All I have to do is love you. I have to meet you with love, see you honestly, and do that with integrity, and just love the shit out of you. Like I want to be loved. And then I can talk to my therapist about whether or not it's a condition or if I need medication, right? But we walk around as though we need to qualify people for the love we have to give when we're not even that good at it. So it's like, how do we instead say, I'm just going to assume you deserve to be loved today. I'm just going to assume.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do my best.
Yeah.
And sometimes I love people from way the fuck over there because you're not you're not healthy for me here, right?
Yeah.
But I still love you. I wish you the best. Get the fuck away from me, right? And I love you. And loving you, part of it is I can't be kind to you either,
Yeah.
right? But if you're going to be here, you need to pay forward to my health and well-being. You have to feed into my soul the way I feed into your soul. That has to be reciprocal. And we have to steward your humanity as though like you are key to my survival, because you are. You are. And until we get to that point, we're missing it, because you can be a list of conditions and walk away feeling invisible and unloved. And that means I've failed. And until I see that as a failure, I'm going to keep on fucking doing it. And that's how the system works the way that it does, right? That's why our kids feel invisible. That's why our kids feel like they can't be authentic, because we keep telling them it's not okay for them to be who they are.
Yeah.
and have them being trained in a system, as you all described, that's like about obedience and not really about them questioning everything, like why we have capital letters.
Right. It's really assembly line.
Yep.
You know, it's almost like car manufacturing. You know, and so when you being different should be honored.
Yeah.
Like being different is okay.
Yep.
And then when we get back to the mental health issue, and a lot of times with parents or those people who teach or education or even in positions of government, is like you have to love yourself first.
Yep.
Right.
Oxygen
It's
mask
hard to give.
on
It's
first.
hard to give love
Yeah.
when you don't love yourself. And so there might be, loving from a deficit is hard,
Yeah.
right? And so again, and that's a journey.
Yeah.
And so again, we keep talking about all these things, but all these things take time.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, again, I just, no fear of time. That's what you have to say, And so that is something that we have to keep. You have to have no fear of time,
Yeah.
because time is irrelevant. So,
Yeah.
like I said, you see me here, but my kids are behind me.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm just here for a moment, but what have I done with the time that I've been given?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's very important.
Speak, Pastor. I think also the thing about loving yourself before you can love other people. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's so important because there are so many there are so many basic statements that we hear all the time, and we misunderstand them or oversimplify them because we haven't done the work in ourselves to actually understand what it really means. And I think like being able to love yourself is critical to loving others, because in the reality, we are mirrors. And so when I look at you and I'm like, I can't fucking stand your ass, there are things either I'm diligent about that I no longer do, or there are things I do currently that like I'm being shown in you. And that's why loving yourself is so critical as a foundational step, because when I meet myself in you, I need to be able to be like, not you're an asshole, but like you deserve love, right? And so the best way you can reach self-love is a diligent and harrowing journey of staring at the ugliest parts of yourself and being like, I still choose to love you.
Yeah.
Because if I can do that for myself, I will never know your behind the scenes story, even if you tell me all the things, because I don't know the shame you carry. I don't know the shame you carry that you don't know you carry. None of that. I'll never see your ugliest parts. But if I can meet my ugliest parts with love, then anything I see in you ain't nothing, right? And so that's what it's about, is being like, I can wrestle through all of the ugliness, all of the choices I wish I could change and can't take back, and I can still meet myself with love there. So you and I will always be good, right? Again, sometimes from over there, but like I can love you fine because
Yeah.
I've looked at the ugliness and you can't beat that, right? So when you're reflecting back to me my ugliness, I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Seen it.
Right.
And I see you and I still want you here, right? And that if we could do that in the schools, if we could do that in community groups, if we could do that in organizations,
Yeah.
I'm watching it transform an organization that I have been at for like 48 days.
Yeah.
Because I'm showing up in space in state government. I'm showing up in space and being like, I get it. That's real. And I love you still. And it's a game changer. And so
Yeah.
I think the more that we can wrestle through the shit we're carrying and love ourselves and figure out like how to really move with integrity, I really think we can change the game, and in our lifetime.
Right. And you'll be invited to the table. Like truth always gets to the table,
Yep.
but we want to do it on our own time,
Yeah.
and that's not how it works.
So good.
So again, patience is a part of that,
Yeah.
because sometimes we have our chart and we have our goals and whatever, and we
I
have
was
a
trying
thousand
to
different
goal
things.
the hell out of some
right,
work today.
Right. And so it's
Yep.
good. It's
People
good.
were like, don't do that.
Don't
right,
do it.
Right. And so
do
again,
it.
what are we really trying to accomplish, and what value is that?
So good.
Like, and so again, it's not about the 10,000 things on the board. What is really making an impact?
Yeah.
Right. And so that is not the quantity, it's the quality, so you hear that all the time. It is the quality. And so, and back to our PhD program is like, when we discovered those theories, when we went through these documents and we were trying to love ourselves, we find things in there that this is why that I have a problem with something about me.
Yeah.
I'm finding things in here that have been systematically put in these documents that have contributed to my suffering.
Yeah.
That somebody actually wrote out, but somebody figured it out, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
And this has been a document that's existed for 50 years. So just know that we're all on a continuous journey,
Yep.
and we go places, and we have to be led, spiritually, let our hearts lead, but understand what are we doing?
Yeah.
People can follow when they have a clear direction, and when they understand what is my purpose.
Yeah.
But if we just have a bunch of things on the board and it just looks good and say we're doing 1,000 different things, what is the most impactful
Yeah.
with the time that we have? And so it seems rudimentary. It seems simple, but it's not, because you're being intentional.
And now you know why every time I was at my limit and I was like, I'm going to quit, I can't do this, I would just call Melvin. I'm a doctor because of this man right here. Because I would have quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. You showed up again today like, damn. I'm just like, I wish I had a notepad. You got all the
Yeah.
things,
She was
so-
moving around, because normally we're on Zoom and we have
Yeah.
conversations.
We'll be like, oh, shoot. Yeah.
And so again, are you the intimacy? The mind is the most important.
Yeah.
The meeting of the minds, and understand that you share and you have values that align,
Right.
and they may not be mainstream things. And unfortunately, sometimes the things that Sarah and I have in common are not mainstream, but we understand it because we've been through it,
Right. Right.
and it doesn't have to be written down. So
Yeah. And there's a lot of beautiful, powerful, and deep things you can talk about when in relationship you don't have to negotiate whether or not your humanity matters, right?
Right.
And so there's like space to have deeper connection and more powerful conversations, both about like, yeah, you fucked up, but also like, I love you, or you won that one, or, there's the celebrations and the fails, right? But that's one thing, even at the beginning of our journey, when we were not homies yet and we were battling all of the things that helped us survive, like you said, ultimately, I've never had to negotiate the worth and value of my humanity with you. And that creates space for me to be vulnerable and drowning and winning all together, right? So thank you for that. And I think that's the last takeaway I would say is like, if I don't have to negotiate with you anymore, we could talk about a whole bunch of other dope shit.
Yeah.
So how do we create spaces where no one has to negotiate?
Right.
Right? Or convince me, oh no, I'm worth it, right?
Yeah. Get
Because
all
then
the
you can
noise out of the
dive
way.
right deep.
Yeah,
right?
and get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Thank
so
you.
good. I wish I'm gonna probably listen to this like 80 times. Probably like writing it all down. But we have to end, right? At some point, the 12 podcasts and this podcast.
Thank
So-
you for this beautiful journey, sharing your hearts and your minds with
Yeah.
us, and your educational journey and your life experience and your wisdom.
Yeah.
It's a gift. Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
We have a couple of shout outs. I want to thank first Megan Darrow for being along on the wild ride, but really want to thank Porcupine Media Crew, who's making this happen behind the scenes.
Yes, porcupine. I love me some porcupine.
Only Fed that just shows up continuously for Together
Yeah.
and give us a
you.
little bit of money to help with a lot of things.
Yep.
Love them. Olympia Furniture and Sleep Company and our friends at Dancing Goats Coffee. And thank you to our listeners for being along for this journey.
Yeah.
And to be continued, we'll let you know what's next.
Yeah. I would say to our team members who were nervous AF coming up in here, sitting on the chair, like, right? People who are used to being, face to face with people, getting their faces and their stories and their wisdom out in the world. I mean, that was one of the goals here, is that, Together's cool. I mean, and the people that make up the team and the board, and we're cool. We're cool. We're doing cool stuff. We're building community, and we're trying our damn best. And I'm proud of us.
Yep.
And
should
thank you
be.
for coming along.
Thanks so
And thank
much
you.
for-
I mean, big thanks for Together Leadership for real, because you all are doing powerful work in the community, and also like you're doing the work and fixing the things that aren't working and looking at it with integrity like we talked about. And so just big thanks to Together as a whole, because you all fill an incredibly important gap in our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's the people we surround ourselves with
Look.
Like
who
these school
keep
counselors.
us accountable.
Yep.
Looking at us like, "Man, you better get right quickly." So thank you all. We're going to close it out. I hope you listen. If this is your first episode,
Yep.
listen backwards. Listen
Go
to
back.
all of them.
Yep.
They
Especially
just
number 5. It's very good.
number 5. I'm telling you, we just kept getting better and better as we went. All right, and with that, goodbye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.